This is a very common question that comes up when people enter into spiritual life. Is the beginning of spiritual life the end of material life? Is it true that once you begin the journey into spiritual life, your material life shall begin to crumble around you, and gradually, one by one, all your means of material support, income, assets, relationships, etc., shall eventually crumble into dust? Is this true? It's a question that is in the hearts and minds of many people, not just of those who are afraid to enter into spiritual life or the relatives of those who are entering into spiritual life, but also a question in the minds of people who are in spiritual life. So one must understand very carefully whether spiritual life eventually results in the destruction of your material wealth, property, assets, income, etc. There are indeed two worlds, a material world and a spiritual world. And the purpose of spiritual training is to make both those worlds one. And to make the spiritual and material worlds one, there is no other book than the Bhagawad Geeta. The Bhagawad Geeta is the supreme book for those who want to continue living their lives with endeavor and with success, and at the same time progressing spiritually to the highest order. The whole principle of life itself is balance. Without balance, there is only destruction. And that destruction of one world will also lead to the destruction of the other. So there is a material world and there is a spiritual world. And you might believe that in order to live fully in the spiritual world, you need to destroy your material world. But the truth is, only when your material world and spiritual world are both in sync, in perfect balance, can one live in perfection, peace, and fulfillment of all material objectives as well. Very often, we find parents who are disturbed that their child, having studied, having acquired professional degrees, having gone to medical, engineering, or other advanced college training, now suddenly decides to shave his head and wear orange robes and leave the parents and begin so called spiritual life. Of course, they should be worried because this is a life, the child's life is going out of balance. Balance requires that you have to have both. You have to have spiritual life and you have to have material life. If you don't have spiritual life and material life in balance, then either of them being in balance will result in destruction of both. If you're engaged in material life and in your material life you have abandoned everything that is spiritual, then surely what will happen? You will find that your life will begin to fall apart. You will find that through lust, anger, and greed, you will be on the road to suffering and hell. त्रिविधम नरकस्य इदम द्वारम नाशनम आत्मनः काम क्रोध तथा लोभस तस्मादेतात्रयम् त्यजेत. There are three paths that lead to hell: lust, anger, and greed. And every wise man should avoid these three. On the other hand, there are people who have abandoned their world, their material world. They have given up all connection to their parents. They have given up connection to their wife, children, family, abandoned their job and all social responsibilities, and have selfishly struggled on the path of salvation, personal salvation. This selfishly salvation centric philosophy is contrary to what the Bhagawad Geeta says. The Bhagavad Gita never tells you to abandon the world. Indeed, the whole Bhagavad Gita is about telling Arjun not to abandon the world, which Arjun is very determined to do right from the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. So we need to reflect and to think, because somehow or the other, largely as a result of the influence of the Shravana philosophies, which are salvation centric, non violent, atheistical, renunciatory, karma centered philosophies, which have influenced a large section of dharmic Hinduism. So, the purpose of Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita was to direct and teach Arjun that spirituality and material life is not an either or proposition, but spirituality and material life is and material spirituality and material life is the correct proposition. The Ishopanishad very clearly declares that andha tamah pravishyanti ya avidyayam upasate tato bhuya evate tamo ya vidyayam ratah. Those who pursue material knowledge alone, they go into great darkness. But those who pursue spiritual knowledge alone go into even greater darkness. Those who worship the gods, the devtas, who are concerned with regulating your material needs, go into great darkness. But those who worship the all pervading, inconceivable, ineffable, supreme, they go into greater darkness. But those who pursue material knowledge and spiritual knowledge side by side, those who worship both the Devtas and the Supreme Lord side by side, they are happy in this world and the next. For indeed, both works, and by works I mean material endeavor or endeavor within this material world, let's call it karma, and spirituality, which we shall call for the moment jnana. So karma and jnana are the two wings of a bird. Both of them are needed. Both of them are needed. In the 6th chapter, 1st verse, you see, Krishna throughout the Bhagavad Gita touches upon each of the dharmic philosophies, theistical darshanas of the Vedas. The 6th chapter specifically deals with the philosophy of yoga or meditation, dhyana yoga. And it's largely drawn from the original yoga, not Patanjali's, which came much, much later after the Bhagavad Gita, but it deals with the Yajnavalkya's yoga. And because that deals with meditation, he begins the first chapter with the verse emphasizing the importance of knowledge. Anashritah karma phalam karya karma karoti yah sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriya. One who works as he is obligated, performing his God-given duties without taking shelter of the fruits of his labor, He is the true he is the true yogi, he is the true sannyasi, not one who lights no fire and does no work. Aru ruksher muner yogam karma karanam uchyate. Yoga rudastasya eva samaha karanam uchyate. For one who has begun the path of yoga, work is supposed to be the means. For one who has already attained to yoga, meditation through cessation of work is said to be the means. Indeed, repeatedly Krishna points out, Sanyasastu mahabhao dukkham aptum yogatah yoga yukta munir brahma na chirena adi gacchati. One who takes to the process of abandoning material life, he gets only sorrow. He gets only sorrow. But one who engages in work with devotion, he attains the supreme without delay. The path that Krishna recommends in the Bhagavad Geeta is to realize the purpose of your creation and then engage in that purpose of your creation, offering everything to this all-pervading, inconceivable, ineffable Lord, whom we know as Lord Krishna. Yatah pravrittirbhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmana abhyarchaya siddhim vindati manava. And each person, by the performance of his God-given duties, in a spirit of sacrifice to this all-pervading Lord, they attain perfection. So your Prakriti has been created for performing a purpose, and therefore your job is to fulfill that purpose in a spirit of sacrifice to this all-pervading Lord. And in doing so, you will attain peace, perfection, and the supreme destination. You have duties at your place of work. You have duties to your clients. You have duties to your patients. You have duties to your family. You have duties to your children. You have duties to society. And you have received instructions from God Himself that you should engage in performing these duties with the highest sense of purpose, that is to please God, without seeking anything for yourself. Yes, Bhagavad Gita is about renunciation, but it is internal renunciation. Yes, Bhagavad Gita is about detachment, but it is about internal detachment. There are many in the world who are externally detached. There are many in the world who are externally acting as if they have no attachments. But the truth is, when you look internally, you will get a clear picture of where they stand. But our business is not to judge other people. Our business is to take care of our own selves. Our duty is to take care of our own selves. And for us to understand that indeed to move around in the world without attachment to anything is what real sannyas is. If you can move through the world with an inner spirit of detachment, with an inner spirit of renunciation, then you are a true sannyasi. If you move around in the world demonstrating as a flag your external renunciation, demonstrating as a flag your external detachment, then be careful. Because Krishna says that brings only sorrow. Dukkham aptum ayogatah. To move like that without having attained union with God is the cause of great sorrow. Krishna explains in the 18th chapter of the Bhagawad Geeta what renunciation should never be. Niyatasya tu sannyasah karmano no papadyate mohatasya parityagas tamasa parikirtitah. Prescribed duty should never be renounced. If by illusion one gives up his prescribed duties, such renunciation, Krishna says, is in the mode of tamagun or ignorance. Dukkham ityeva yat karma kaya klesha bhayatyajit sakritva rajasam tyagam naiva tyaga phalam labet. Anyone who gives up prescribed duties as being troublesome or out of fear is said to be in the mode of passion, is said to be in Rajaguna. And such actions never lead to the elevation of renunciation. Therefore, no one should renounce the world on these two principles. And Krishna says in chapter 18, text 9, Karyam itya eva yat karma niyatam kriyate Arjuna. Sangam tyaktva phalam chaiva satyaga satviko mataha. But he who performs his God-given duty only because it ought to be done, and who renounces all attachment to the fruit, his renunciation is of the form of nature of Sattva Guna Arjuna. He also points out in 18.10, Na dveshati akushalam karma kushale nanu sajjate tyagi sattva samavishto medave china ne medave chinna samshayah. Those who are situated in Sattva Gun, they do not consider any work to be inauspicious or auspicious. They neither reject inauspicious work, they are not attached to auspicious work. They have, in fact, no doubts about any sort of work that has been prescribed by God for them. Na hi deha bhrit shakyam tyaktum karmanya asheshatah yastu karma phala tyagi satyagitya abhidiyate. It is impossible for an embodied being to give up all activities because from birth until death they are bound to Prakriti. Therefore, since you cannot renounce activity, if you renounce the fruits of your action, this is a person who is truly renounced. This is a person who is truly renounced. Anishtam ishtam mishram cha trividham karmana phalam bhuvatya atyaginam pretya natu sannyasinam kvachit. For one who is not renounced the threefold fruits of action, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrue after death. But those who perform all actions without attachment, in a spirit of renunciation and sacrifice and devotion, at the feet of the all-pervading Lord with the idea Om Tat Sat, such people have no results to enjoy or to suffer. So you have to understand very clearly that from the perspective of Krishna, he does not want you to give up the purpose for which he has created you. So those who have created you, why would he, when he has created you for a purpose, why would God want you to abandon that? So Bhagavad Gita is not about giving up spiritual life. Bhagavad Gita very clearly is about performing your duties in the best possible manner. In the beginning of the 18th chapter, Krishna says, Kamyanam karmanam nyasam sannyasam kavayo vidu sarva karma phala tyagam prahu tyagam vichakshana. To give up the results of all activities is called tyaga. And that state of being renounced, not desiring the fruits of his labor, such a person is termed to be a sannyasi. Indeed, there are three activities Krishna says one should never give up. And these three activities that one should never give up are yajna, dan, and tapasya. Because such activities purify even the great souls. Yajna, dana, tapah, karma, na tyajam karyam eva tat. Yagno dana tapaschaiva pavanani manishinam. एतन्यपि तु कर्माणि संगम त्यक्त्वा फलानि च कर्तव्यानिति मे पार्था निश्चितं मतम उत्तमम. All your activities should be performed without any expectation of result. They should be performed in a matter of duty, O Krishna, O son of Pritha. This is my final opinion. So Krishna wants you to work as a prayer. चेतसा सर्व कर्माणि मयि सन्न्यस्य मत्परा बुद्धि योगम उपाश्रिता मच्चित्त सततम भव मच्चित्त सर्व दुर्गाणि मत प्रसादात् तरिष्यसि अथो चेत्त्वम् अहंकारं न श्रोष्यसि विनङ्क्षसि. Indeed, always think of me. Be absorbed in me, surrender unto me, be united with me in your mind. And by my grace, you will cross over all obstacles in your material life. Krishna says, if you are working in remembrance of me, remembering him, offering everything to him, being absorbed in him, by his grace, you will cross over all obstacles in life. And not only you will cross over all obstacles in life, if you think you are doing it, atho chetam ahankaran, na shrostasi vinamshasi, then everything will be finished. So therefore, at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna very clearly says, and in fact, you will see in chapter 18, verse 78, we see the conclusion drawn by Sanjaya. Yatra Yogeshwaro Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutir, Dhruv Nitir Matir Mamaha. Wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, whenever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. See, let me tell you one thing about spiritual life. This is based upon more than 30, 40 years of direct experience and observation. It is very easy to become detached from the world. It is very easy to become renounced. The problem is, once that happens, what do? That answer is in the Bhagavad Gita. But if you are fool enough to ask somebody who shaved his head and wore orange robes, he will not teach you Bhagavad Gita. Or he'll twist Bhagavad Gita to tell you this is what Bhagavad Gita tells you. What nonsense. Is that what Arjuna tells Krishna? Krishna tells Arjuna that yes, Arjuna, you're right. Shave your head, wear orange robes. He never says that. He never says that. He says, Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshaishami mas. Abandon all other stupid varieties of religion and surrender unto me. Perform your duty, your God-given duties. And by I will take care of all sins, never fear. So Bhagavad Gita is not about renunciation, it is against renunciation, it is not about karma, it is against the law of karma, and it teaches you how to transcend it. It's a karma busting book. The Bhagavad Gita is about dharma, and the performance of dharma in the right spirit leads to moksha. So it is the performance of dharma that leads to moksha eventually. And on the way you will experience both artha and kama. There is no reason why you should jump and go to moksha. That is not the teachings of formal religion. The renunciatory order has come largely as a result of influences of the Shramana philosophies which today exist as Buddhism and Jainism. Otherwise, you see, Ram had a spouse, Krishna had many spouses, and so on and so forth. All incarnations in the Vaishnava tradition have always had a spouse. Shiva also has a spouse. Why will they want you to abandon the world? It's good. We want you to be internally renounced. We want you to be internally detached. But we want you to do that and perform your duties in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion to God. So I will pause here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me.